Picture this. You are the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, navigating the usual chaos of governing, and then one of your party's most prominent figures gets absolutely buried in revelations connecting him to Jeffrey Epstein, convicted pedophile, and one of the most reviled figures in modern history. Not just casual connections, mind you, but allegations of receiving $75,000, that's about £55,000, from Jeffrey Epstein. Let that sink in. A senior British political figure, someone who has been at the heart of UK governance for decades, allegedly took money from a convicted sex offender. The optics alone are catastrophic, but the substance is even worse. Now, Mandelson clearly saw which way the wind was blowing, because on Sunday night he essentially threw himself out of the Labour Party before he could be pushed. He resigned, citing his desire to avoid causing further embarrassment. It's the political equivalent of jumping out of a burning building before someone can tell you the building is on fire. Damage limitation in its purest form. But here's where it gets properly fascinating. Sir Keir Starmer has come out swinging, demanding that Mandelson step down from the House of Lords entirely and calling for an urgent review into the scandal. Downing Street has declared that the new Labour cabinet minister should no longer be allowed to sit in Parliament. Strong words, decisive leadership, exactly what you would expect from a prime minister trying to distance himself from a toxic situation. There's just one tiny problem. Starmer doesn't actually have the power to strip Mandelson of his peerage. He can demand all he wants, but removing someone from the Lords is not something the Prime Minister can simply order like a takeaway curry. The constitutional machinery doesn't work that way. But wait, because it gets even juicier. The latest documents related to Epstein include emails that appear to show Lord Mandelson sharing internal government information about then Prime Minister Gordon Brown with the convicted pedophile. Read that again. A cabinet minister allegedly sharing sensitive information about the sitting prime minister with Jeffrey Epstein. The mind boggles at what possible legitimate reason there could be for that. What earthly justification exists for keeping a sex offender in the loop about internal government matters? And it doesn't stop there. Mandelson is also alleged to have shared market-sensitive information with Epstein during his cabinet tenure. This is where things shift from politically embarrassing to potentially criminal, because market-sensitive information in the wrong hands can be used for financial gain, manipulation, and serious economic damage. This is precisely where Zia Yusuf enters the story with all the subtlety of a sledgehammer through a greenhouse window. Yusuf, Reform UK's policy chief, and someone who has rapidly become one of the party's most prominent voices, has called the situation one of the most extraordinary political stories of his lifetime, aside from obviously the egregious and heinous criminal acts that Jeffrey Epstein committed himself. He's not mincing words, and frankly, it's hard to blame him. Yusuf's analysis on GB News was damning and direct. He pointed out that Mandelson allegedly gave Epstein an early heads-up about Gordon Brown's resignation, which is politically sensitive enough. But then he highlighted something even more serious. Mandelson allegedly tipped off Epstein about the $500 billion Eurozone bailout. $500 billion. That's not gossip over drinks. That's market-moving, economy-shaping information being allegedly handed to someone who managed enormous amounts of money and had every reason to exploit such intelligence for financial advantage. Yusuf characterized this as open and shut market manipulation. Those are incredibly serious words with incredibly serious implications. Market manipulation is not a civil matter you settle with a fine and a slap on the wrist. It's criminal. It undermines financial systems, damages trust in markets, and can have consequences that ripple through economies affecting millions of people. If the allegations are true, and that's obviously a massive if requiring thorough investigation, then this is not just a political scandal, it's a criminal matter with potentially international ramifications. The Eurozone bailout was a critical moment in global financial history, occurring during the financial crisis when markets were incredibly fragile and information asymmetry could be exploited for massive gains. The idea that someone with inside government knowledge might have been feeding that intelligence to a private individual with financial interests is genuinely shocking. Now, here's where Yusuf's position gets really interesting and politically calculated. He's not just demanding that Mandelson face consequences, he's demanding that Sir Keir Starmer resign as well. Think about that escalation. Yusuf is essentially arguing that the scandal is so severe and Starmer's response so inadequate that the Prime Minister himself should step down. It's an enormous political gambit, and it puts Starmer in an incredibly difficult position. If he does nothing beyond demanding Mandelson leave the Lords, which he can't actually enforce, he looks weak. If he does more, what exactly can he do? Launch an investigation? Sure, but investigations take time and may not satisfy critics who want immediate action. The political calculus here is brutal. From Reform UK's perspective, this is an absolute gift. They've been positioning themselves as the anti-establishment party, the ones willing to call out corruption and cronyism wherever it exists. Having a senior Labour figure allegedly connected to Epstein and potentially involved in market manipulation is precisely the kind of scandal that feeds their narrative. They can hammer Labour on this for months, possibly years, arguing that the establishment protects its own and that real accountability never happens. Whether that's fair or accurate is almost beside the point. Politics is often about perception, and the perception here is catastrophic for Labour. Thanks for watching Westminster Brief. See you in the next one.